The final day this season for Donnie Rightside around the National Football League on the early line. So before he goes to New Orleans this weekend and he gets ready for a big weekend on Pro Football Today, DRS is not going to be here on a Friday tomorrow, sadly. But we need his thoughts on Super Bowl 59. And thus, we present to you Donnie Rightside's Pick 6. I'm sure Joe Ranieri and I will have one next Football Friday for Super Bowl 59. We get it live from DRS here on this Thursday on TEL. DRS, we'll miss you next week, my man. We'll miss you. But I really do hope you find the burger spot of your dreams in the Big Easy. You eat as many beignets as your diet will allow, and you have a blast out there in NOLA.
Yeah, just got to find out where I can find a couple cans of pineapple juice, and then we got the whole week set, and we're ready to rock and roll and do it up to the biggest New Orleans party you can have down there. So we're ready. I'm ready.
Pineapple juice?
Yeah. I like pineapple juice. Sometimes when we
go to the holiday party?
Yes. Like when it's a long day, I like have a couple sips of pineapple juice, but also when it interrupts my eating patterns, which every single week the Pro Football Today show on Sundays do. I do have a little 8-ounce can of pineapple juice that during takes, I go take a couple sips from there just to keep the vibes right.
What, the energy, the sugar that it provides gets you going?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm usually I like to eat between 11 and 12:30, but I'm on the air till 1, so it just keeps me, gets a little electrolytes in you, a little sugar in there, ready to go. So yeah,
I'm sure you can find some pineapple juice. I'm sure you can. I believe that you will. All right, so the Pick 6 is slightly different than what we have done throughout the regular season. Of course, there is only one game, and it is still very early for our Super Bowl handicaps and wagers. We have Donnie Rightside's winner of Super Bowl 59, Super Bowl MVP bet, his favorite prop bet for the biggest game of a year, his favorite touchdown score for the biggest game of the season, an X factor to keep an eye on, and of course, trying to hit a wager before the game even officially begins. Coin toss, heads or tails. Donnie, let's start with the biggest of them all. Who wins Super Bowl 59?
I think it is the Philadelphia Eagles. I do. Is it going to be a great game? Yes, it is. Is it a coin flip on the spread? Yes, it is at this point. But I just look at the differences between that game 2 years ago to this game here. Eagles lost that football game, won a little revenge, sure that plays into it. But I'm not so sure that Kansas City team wasn't more explosive and a better version of Kansas City than they are this year. And the Eagles' version of a defense, which was very good in that Super Bowl, is much better. Why? Because it's buoyed by an absolutely lockdown secondary. But the key to this game, obviously, Saquon Barkley needs to be great. Jalen Hurts can't turn the football over. They have to make plays at the wide out, but it's simple for me. It comes down to the trenches. The Eagles' defensive line is much better than the Chiefs' offensive line. You take a look at a guard in Joe Thuney, which swings out the left tackle now. He's a viable option at left tackle, but that brings Caliendo into the guard position, one of the worst guards in football, who he's going to see a lot of, Jalen Carter, one of the best defensive ends / tackles in football to come after him. And you take a look at the other side with Taylor, one of the worst right tackles in football, penalized all over the place. If the Eagles can win the front line advantage, like I think they will do, that means you don't have to send blitzes at Patrick Mahomes, and you can let that blanket secondary cover those wide receivers for Kansas City. So it's not an assessment of, Donnie's an Eagles fan. No, I honestly believe this game will be won on the offensive defensive line, which it should have been won last Super Bowl, but the field was so damn slippery that didn't play out. We're on turf. No advantages there either side, just the better football players on a better side, and I think it's the Eagles' defensive line that's going to be the catalyst for this performance, and they pick up the victory.
It was a historic Philadelphia defensive front entering Super Bowl 57 2 years ago. They had recorded 52 sacks, I believe, in that season, if not more. The numbers could be incorrect, but the second most in a single season in National Football League history, only behind the monsters of the Midway from the 1985 Chicago Bears. They did not sack Patrick Mahomes once in Super Bowl 57. Footing was a big issue. We hope that is not the case in the Caesars Superdome. If you see the Sodfather, get ready to go, DRS. Get ready to go. We have talked about revenge. DRS, just from a handicapping and actual betting perspective, you highlighted the matchups, why you think Philadelphia has the favor in Super Bowl 59. Have you already bet the Eagles on the money line? Are you going to wait to bet the Birds on the money line? How would you advise the general betting public if they like a side, do you bet it right here, right now? Do you wait until next week? When do you get down?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have to work because what's the chances? It's plus 106. Right. Is that life change? Hey, man, if I lose that plus 190, I can never live myself, and it's plus 110 now. Like, what does the plus 106 go to? Plus 110, plus 111, or minus 101? So I don't think we have any things here. So, and also understand this. Well, why don't you bet it now if you like it so much? A lot can change from right now to next week. Did we think that Jalen Hurts would get injured in a football game? Cam Jordan would not be starting. We've even seen in the Super Bowl players get suspended the night before of the game. I'm just saying, people get sick that you never. Hey, by the way, big flu outbreak for the Chiefs. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad I bet it a week and a half ago. Well, now I can get 3 points as opposed to laying minus the 1.5. That's why I'm waiting, because I don't think it's going to be a differentiating factor that's going to change my opinion, even if it goes to minus 125 on the Eagles. It's not that big of a difference that's going to affect me. So no, I will wait probably till next week once I get home to finally make that wager when we know all of the stakes on this game, who's playing, who's healthy, and away we go.
Listen, and if there is that much of a drastic shift that would make the Birds a favorite, something has happened, because I think the odds makers are hesitant to make Kansas City an underdog by any means. So if that's the case, or even if the Chiefs were to rise to a field goal favorite, something has happened in terms of how this game is going to be played. I think we're talking a couple of cents either which way, but ultimately, Donnie, we both agreed the Chiefs are going to be a slight favorite by the time we get to Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans. All right, you have the Eagles winning Super Bowl 59, which more than likely means a player on the Birds is going to win the individual hardware in the Super Bowl MVP award. Who is it?
It's going to be Saquon Barkley in this game. I believe that. One of the guys, like all throughout the season, you watched him being the catalyst of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And now you're getting into a game where, once again, you're not worried about, Saquon Barkley just can't cut on this grass. He's falling down at this point. One of the best jump cuts in the history of the sport, which you saw twice on display with his touchdown runs here on the goal line, which means I run into the middle, I hop, skip to the outside to the right, nobody can catch me. That means extra touchdown chances for Saquon Barkley. I think there's a legitimate chance he gets 2 touchdowns in this game, which means if he gets anything more than 75 yards rushing with those 2 touchdowns and they win, he is going to win the MVP award in this game. So for me, it's Saquon Barkley plus 280, multiple touchdowns, having a solid performance, if not historic performance, on a historic season for him as a running back.
We'll talk more about the individuals and Donnie's favorite prop for Super Bowl 59 in just a moment. Is there a pathway for the Eagles to win the Lombardi Trophy that does not feature a big game from Saquon Barkley? Perhaps, right? It could be low scoring. Jalen Hurts could be generational. But if you believe Philly is going to win, Saquon Barkley is going to be a huge factor, as he has been in every single game during his first year in Philadelphia. At least 118 rushing yards in all 3 postseason victories for the Eagles this year. And the Chiefs are great up front. Let's not mince words.
They are.
But James Cook still had a big day. 13 carries, 85 yards, 2 rushing scores, and almost 50 as a receiver out of the backfield as well. And Donnie, let's not forget, this is a narrative award as well. And Saquon Barkley, who we all consider an MVP frontrunner and true contender with a record-setting and historic regular season, that's going to carry over in the mind of the writers who vote on who wins Super Bowl 59's MVP. If you think the Eagles win, I agree, Donnie. I think the best bet right now from the MVP perspective is Saquon.
Yeah, and also, you brought up a good point here. Miles Sanders, one of the best backs in football a few years ago when the Eagles played. He was insignificant in that Super Bowl, and Jalen Hurts was the major catalyst. So he does have an MO for stepping up in the biggest games, but you got Saquon Barkley on turf with 2 weeks of rest. Yeah, I think he's going to look pretty good in the Super Bowl.
And again, if Jalen Hurts is generational and leads Philadelphia to the win, great. Yeah. You're not expecting that at this moment. Right. But what are we expecting out of Hurts? More than that. We continue with Donnie's Pick 6 for Super Bowl 59, as today is his last day on the early line this football season before he heads to New Orleans over the weekend. So, DRS, we were just talking about it. You think the Eagles win Super Bowl 59. You have explained why, as one of the most unbiased men in sports media. Saquon Barkley, thus, if the Birds are going to win a Lombardi Trophy, to have his own individual hardware as Super Bowl 59's MVP winner. But now your favorite prop, pathway to a victory. How do the Eagles get it done? Donnie, what do the Birds need out of Jalen Hurts 2 weeks from now?
Same thing we saw out of him in his last performance against the Washington Commanders. Now, it's a much better defense, but understand this, how football is supposed to happen. We always joke about, like, hey, well, all they got to do is take away Saquon Barkley and see. Stop it, man. Then everybody would take away Patrick Mahomes every game, and you get the point in this. You can't do that. You're going to get big gains here by Saquon Barkley because he's a good back, and that's what he does and has done all season. But understand this. In order to beat Kansas City and, Steve Spagnuolo, you are going to have a balanced attack. And we're not talking about, well, that means Saquon for $130, and that means Jalen Hurts for $330, and that means he throws 4 touchdown passes, and Saquon scores 2, and it's a shootout. We're just saying being competent. Like, we saw a number in the last game, which I took over 179.5 on Jalen Hurts, that was treating him, even with somewhat of a bum leg, like he was Justin Fields in the Chicago Bears and he's never threw a football before. I understand that you've seen some games this year where Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown for a lot of yards. That's because the Eagles are the most devastating rushing attack in the sport. So now you're going up against a team that has a very good defense that the last time you saw this decent defense, you torched in the Super Bowl. Again, not asking for 275 plus yards, but 210 for Jalen Hurts. Like, honestly, you leave this football game and go, hey, Jalen Hurts threw for 215. That's not a great game. That's a mediocre game there, and that still hits that 210 number. I'm just looking for a balanced attack in a game, Ben, that's supposed to have 50 points from the odds makers, which means the Eagles and the Chiefs should somewhere come around 24 to 25 points. You're going to have to throw the football. 210's not a lot. He should be able to get that. Jalen Hurts over 210.5 pass yards here.
In his first Super Bowl appearance 2 years ago against this very same team, the defense better now than it was in 2022 for KC. But Jalen Hurts, 28 of 37, 304 passing yards, a touchdown. Was the Eagles' leading rusher. 15 total carries, 70 rushing yards, 3 scores. One of 2 guys in a Super Bowl ever to have 3 rushing touchdowns in a single game. He was generational. He was historic. Do they need that this time around? Are we expecting the same performance? Probably not. Do they need a lot out of Jalen Hurts? Still, yes, because, Donnie, we talked about a pathway for Saquon Barkley. I still think it would be more likely. If Saquon were to go over his numbers and Hurts under all of his, I still favor Kansas City. If Saquon were to stay under because what his numbers are and Hurts goes over, then there's still a pathway for the Eagles to be triumphant in New Orleans. Your favorite touchdown score. We've got 2 guys in minus money, Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts at minus 115. So who do you like best to hit pay dirt in New Orleans?
Yeah, price appropriate, right? That's what we're going for here. Do I think Saquon Barkley probably scores a touchdown? Yes, but it is minus 190. If you take a look at Jalen Hurts, who probably will score a touchdown, he's still minus money as well. But if I'm looking at the way the Kansas City Chiefs operate, seems like Kareem Hunt is getting those goal line carries a little bit more than Isaiah Pacheco. And again, if we're looking at the Chiefs with a team total around 25 points, you're looking at least 3 touchdowns. Sure, Mahomes can throw 2, absolutely. Has he thrown a lot of touchdown passes? 3, 4, 5, 6? No, that's not the old Patrick Mahomes. They're more steady in the red zone, running the football. I think Kareem Hunt still has a pretty good price here at a plus 130 to find pay dirt. I would love for the Philadelphia Eagles to shut out the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not going to happen. They'll move the football, they'll make plays, they'll be in the red zone, and Kareem Hunt's a pretty good addition inside the 5-yard line, seemingly where Pacheco usually owned all of those carries. That's not the case anymore at Kansas City. Give me Kareem Hunt plus 130 to score.
Isaiah Pacheco was such a factor in Super Bowl 57. 15 carries, 76 yards, a score. Really emerged toward the tail end of what was his rookie season. The 7th-round draft pick out of Rutgers. You thought, oh, my God, the Chiefs did it again. A discount on a rookie running back salary for this guy that is going to be their bell cow for years to come. Of course, a significant ankle injury earlier in the year. We thought it might sideline him for the entirety of the season. The fact that Pacheco is back and playing is notable. Kareem Hunt is that guy, leading rusher for Kansas City in each of their 2 playoff games, the most attempts on the ground in each of the 2 playoff wins so far, and a rushing score. I like the look, DRS. Your X factor for the Big Easy in Super Bowl 59 is who?
As I take that deep breath and say Juju Smith-Schuster, because why? He actually had a pretty good game in the last Super Bowl they played. He actually got that penalty called on him against James Bradbury, and it just feels fitting, right? Some of these games step up where it's like, hey, it's A.J. Brown, it should be Devontae Smith. It should be the big name guys. Worthy on that team gets a lot of looks. Marquise Hollywood Brown's going to get a lot of looks. But something feels to me, just like we just saw last weekend, a couple catches, 60-plus yards. Didn't expect that here. Like a veteran wide receiver like Juju making a big catch, scoring a big touchdown, or a 3rd and 7 conversion to maybe seal the football game. My X factor is a guy that, and again, that's what an X factor is. Like, hey, X factor, A.J. Brown getting 100. Yeah, stop it. Like, you're taking a look at a guy that you don't anticipate having a big game, but you're like, you know what? He does have a chance to do something special in this game. And as much as I hate to say it, it's Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, the easy out would have been who? Will Shipley, Cooper DeJean, pick 6. But come on, I'm biased here. So unbiased at this point. Come on.
I like it. 2022, that season in Super Bowl 57 2 years ago, Smith-Schuster was the most targeted in the Super Bowl by Kansas City, the most grabs for the Chiefs as well. Last week, only 3 targets, but 2 big catches for 60 yards, which you would think based on his prop for this year's Super Bowl, 14.5, he can go over in 1 grab. I like that look, DRS. All right, coin toss. Let's win some money from the very start of Super Bowl Sunday. Heads or tails?
Tails never fails, baby. Come on, you can't be going heads at this point. It's got to be tails. Nobody wants to pick tails. I'm picking tails. I'm a left-handed player. That's what we do. Tails. Let's go.
Always. Tails never fails, man. Heads beats me. I shake my, I shake my hand in agreement, but I'm always going tails never fails. Great pick 6 for Super Bowl 59, DRS.